The air hung heavy with the smell of salt and secrets. Darkness clung to the narrow streets of Naples, obscuring the grime and the despair. Above, a sliver of moon peeked through the tangle of laundry lines, casting an eerie glow on the cobblestones below. The city, a living, breathing entity, throbbed with a hidden pulse, a rhythm of danger and allure that echoed through the ages. A lone figure, Enzo, emerged from a darkened doorway, his face etched with the harsh realities of his world. His eyes, hardened and wary, scanned the street, taking in every shadow, every whisper carried on the wind. He adjusted the heavy leather bag slung over his shoulder, its contents a dangerous secret. Enzo was a creature of the night, his life a tapestry woven with threads of smuggling and deceit. The weight of his father's memory pressed down on Enzo, a constant reminder of the life he had chosen, the path he couldn't escape. His father, a man of the law, gunned down in a mafia hit. Collateral damage, they called it. A casualty in a war that had raged for generations in the city's underbelly. Enzo had been just 16, the eldest of 4 brothers, forced to become a man overnight. There was Marco, his younger brother, impulsive and hot-headed, already dabbling in petty crime. Luca, the quiet observer, his nose always buried in a book, dreaming of a life beyond the confines of their neighborhood. And then Alessandro, the youngest, just a boy when their world shattered, clinging to his mother's skirts for comfort. Years had passed, and the brothers had grown, their paths diverging like rivers rushing towards the sea. Enzo, hardened and cynical, had embraced the darkness that had claimed their father. He became a cog in the city's underworld machine, trafficking arms, his hands stained with the blood money that kept his family afloat. Marco, his ambition burning bright, had climbed the ranks of the Camorra, his name whispered in the same breath as the men who had orchestrated their father's murder. His rise had been swift, fueled by a ruthless ambition and a desire to avenge his father's death, even if it meant becoming the very thing he swore to destroy. Luca, ever the scholar, had chosen a different path. He became a teacher, his classroom a sanctuary amidst the chaos, his students a beacon of hope in a city consumed by shadows. He clung to the belief that education was the only way to break the cycle of violence, to honor his father's memory by building a better future. Alessandro, the baby of the family, now a man of law himself, walked the same streets as his father, his uniform a symbol of justice, a constant reminder of the sacrifice their family had endured. He pursued justice relentlessly, his every action driven by the need to right the wrongs that plagued their city. Their father's memory hung over them, a ghost in the shadows, a constant presence in their lives. They gathered every Sunday, as they always had, at their mother's table, a ritual they clung to, a fragile thread connecting them to a past that felt both distant and achingly close. The dinners were often strained, the air thick with unspoken words, the weight of their choices pressing down on them. Enzo, his eyes haunted by the things he had seen and done, would steal glances at his brothers, a flicker of guilt momentarily breaking through his hardened exterior. Marco, his gaze arrogant, his words laced with the swagger of his newfound power, would dominate the conversation, boasting of his successes, his eyes daring his brothers to challenge his authority. Luca, his voice soft but steady, would try to steer the conversation to safer ground, his words a balm on the raw emotions that simmered beneath the surface. Alessandro, his jaw set, his eyes filled with a quiet determination, would say little, his silence speaking volumes. He couldn't reconcile his brother's choices with the oath he had taken, the oath to uphold the law, the oath that felt like a betrayal of his own flesh and blood. "You think this life is easy?" Enzo finally snapped, his voice rough with unshed tears, his words echoing in the silence that followed. He slammed his fist on the table, the plates rattling, the sound jarring in the quiet room. "You think I like what I do? But someone has to take care of Mama. Someone has to keep a roof over our heads." He looked at each of his brothers, his gaze lingering on Alessandro. "You think I don't see the judgment in your eyes? You're no different, Alessandro. You wear a badge, but you're playing their game too. You're lost, Marco," Alessandro said, his voice low and dangerous. "You've become the very thing we swore to fight against." Marco's smile was cold, devoid of humor. "Power is the only language these people understand," he said, his voice hard. "I have to fight fire with fire." "There are other ways," Luca insisted, his gaze pleading with his brother. You don't have to become one of them. It's too late for that, Marco said, his eyes hardening. I'm already in too deep. The tension in the room was palpable, a live wire stretched taut, threatening to snap at any moment. Enzo, caught between his brothers, felt a familiar sense of despair wash over him. They were a family fractured, their loyalties divided, their paths diverging further with each passing day. Remember your promise, Marco. Their mother's voice, weak but steady, broke through the tension, her gaze fixed on her eldest sons. She had aged, her hair now streaked with silver, her face etched with worry lines that spoke of countless sleepless nights. You promised me on your father's grave that you would protect your brothers, that you would keep them safe. Her eyes, filled with a mother's love and a lifetime of sorrow, moved from one son to the other. Don't break your promise, Figlimie. Don't let this city break you. Her words, a plea spoken from the depths of her heart, hung in the air, a stark reminder of the fragility of their bond, the ever-present threat of the darkness that surrounded them. For a moment the brothers were silent, each lost in their thoughts, the weight of their mother's words pressing down on them. The streets of Naples, a labyrinth of shadows and secrets, held them captive, its pull as strong as the ties of blood that bound them. Enzo, his heart heavy, knew he couldn't escape his fate, the path he had chosen leading him further into the darkness. Marco, consumed by his ambition, his soul slowly being eaten away by the corrosive power he craved, seemed determined to burn down everything in his path, even if it meant destroying himself in the process. Luca, his spirit unbroken, clung to the belief that he could make a difference, that he could be a force for good in a city that seemed hell-bent on destroying itself. Alessandro, his idealism slowly being chipped away by the harsh realities of his job, struggled to reconcile his sense of justice with the knowledge that his own brother had chosen to embrace the darkness. They were brothers, bound by blood and history, yet divided by their choices, their destinies intertwined in a city where loyalty and betrayal were two sides of the same coin. As the night deepened, casting long shadows across the city, the brothers parted ways, their paths diverging once more, each carrying the weight of their choices, the memory of their father, and the unbreakable bond of family. The streets of Naples, witness to their joys and sorrows, their triumphs and failures, held them in its embrace, a constant reminder of who they were, where they came from, and the choices that lay ahead. Their story was far from over, the chapters yet to be written, the ink still wet on the pages of their lives, and through it all, the memory of their father, a beacon of light in the darkness, would continue to guide them, a reminder that even in the heart of the storm, the bonds of family could never be truly broken.